Oh, honey, Denise's voice carried through the elegant lobby of Lumiere, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Your name isn't on the guest list. Maybe try the fast food court instead. I stood frozen at the hostess stand, the carefully selected dress I'd spent 2 weeks' salary on suddenly feeling cheap despite its designer label. The hostess looked uncomfortable, glancing between her tablet and my stepmother's smug face. There must be some mistake, I said, keeping my voice steady. The invitation clearly stated 7 o'clock. Denise's lips curled into the smile I knew all too well, the one that signaled she was enjoying someone else's humiliation. No mistake. Family only tonight. She emphasized family in a way that made it clear I didn't qualify. Behind her, I could see my father seated at a large table with Denise's children, my half-siblings, along with extended family and friends. Dad hadn't noticed the confrontation yet, engrossed in conversation with my half-brother. Dad invited me himself, I insisted, pulling out my phone to show the text message. Denise laughed, patting my arm condescendingly. Your father's so forgetful these days. This dinner is for celebrating Thomas getting into law school. We wouldn't want to dilute the occasion. I'm Mandy Wilson, 27 years old, and for 20 years I've been the family outsider. My mother died when I was 7, and within a year Dad married Denise, who came with 2 children of her own. Since then, I've been systematically pushed to the periphery of my own family, watching as my half-siblings received opportunities, attention, and love that were never extended to me. All I wanted was simple, to be treated as an equal member of the family, to maintain my relationship with my father, to be included in family milestones. Standing between me and this basic desire was Denise, who had spent 2 decades ensuring I understood my place as the unwanted reminder of my father's first marriage. Come on, Mandy, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Don't make a scene. It's Thomas's special night. As she turned to walk away, I caught the hostess giving me a sympathetic look. I'd almost decided to leave when my phone buzzed with a text. My business partner, Jade. All set for tomorrow's meeting with Pierre? He's excited about our expansion proposal. Pierre Lumiere, the renowned chef who had recently taken on silent partners to expand his restaurant empire. The same Pierre whose flagship restaurant I was currently being turned away from. Before I could respond to Jade, I noticed Denise returning to the hostess stand, her expression hardening. You're still here? I thought I made myself clear, she hissed, lowering her voice. Your father agrees it's better if you leave. He doesn't need you ruining another family event with your neediness. Those words hit harder than any before, planting a seed of doubt. Had Dad really said that about me? Growing up as the only reminder of my father's first marriage wasn't easy. In the early years after Mom died, Dad and I were inseparable, watching Saturday morning cartoons, taking hiking trips, him patiently teaching me to ride a bike. Those memories became my touchstones, artifacts from a time when I was someone's priority. Everything changed when Denise arrived with her children, Thomas and Catherine. Initially, I was excited to have siblings. That enthusiasm faded quickly when I realized Denise had different plans for our blended family, plans that positioned me as an outsider looking in. It started with small things, different rules for me versus her children, forgotten promises, my achievements minimized while theirs were celebrated extravagantly. Family photos were arranged, so I stood at the edge, easy to crop out. Holiday gifts showed clear disparities, Thomas and Catherine receiving the latest electronics while I got practical items like socks or school supplies. Dad noticed sometimes and tried to intervene, but Denise was masterful at making me seem oversensitive. Mandy's just looking for attention, she'd say, or, she's always been dramatic. Over time, Dad's interventions grew less frequent, his guilty looks more common. Despite this, I excelled academically, winning a full scholarship to Northwestern University. At my high school graduation, Denise organized a small family dinner, while Thomas, who'd barely maintained a C average, received a backyard celebration with 50 guests when he graduated 2 years later. After college, determined to stand on my own, I launched a digital marketing agency with my roommate Jade. Starting with local businesses in Chicago, we built a reputation for innovative campaigns that delivered measurable results. While my family believed I was playing at business, we secured increasingly prestigious clients, eventually catching the attention of investors. Throughout these years, I maintained contact with Dad, meeting for occasional lunches when Denise was busy. He seemed proud of my accomplishments but rarely mentioned them at home. "Denise gets jealous sometimes," he explained once. "It's easier if I don't rock the boat." I accepted this dynamic, telling myself that maintaining any relationship with Dad was better than none. When family events occurred, I'd receive last-minute invitations or learn about them afterward through social media. Each exclusion stung, but I rationalized Denise's behavior as insecurity rather than malice. Even after our agency's profile rose with features in business publications and industry awards, Denise continued treating me as the family failure. At last year's Thanksgiving, she introduced me to her friends as Janet's daughter, rather than by name, then quickly changed the subject when someone asked about my work. I still believed, perhaps naively, that time would soften her antipathy. That with enough success, enough patience, she would eventually accept me. So when Dad's text arrived inviting me to Thomas's celebration dinner at Lumiere, one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants, I allowed myself to hope this might be a turning point. Standing in Lumiere's elegant entrance, I hesitated. Denise's claim that Dad didn't want me there contradicted the warm text he'd sent yesterday. I needed to see his reaction for myself. "I'll just say a quick congratulations to Thomas," I told the hostess, moving past her station toward the dining room. Denise stepped directly into my path, her carefully maintained smile tightening. "Mandy, don't embarrass yourself. Security can escort you out if necessary." I scanned the room until I spotted Dad. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, pretending to be absorbed in conversation. That single avoidant glance confirmed what I'd tried to deny for years. He wouldn't stand up for me, not even now. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll go." As I turned to leave, Catherine, my half-sister, who'd always followed her mother's lead in keeping me at arm's length, approached with a champagne flute in hand. "Leaving so soon, Mandy?" she asked, her voice carrying just enough for nearby tables to hear. "Mom said you weren't invited, but I figured you'd try to crash anyway. Some things never change." Several guests turned to stare. I felt my face flush with humiliation. "Thomas got into Columbia law," Catherine continued, examining her manicure. "But I guess you wouldn't know, since you're not really involved in family milestones." "I sent him a congratulations text when he told me last week," I replied, struggling to maintain composure. Catherine laughed. "Did he respond? He probably didn't want to encourage you. No offense, but these events are for people who matter to our future." Her casual cruelty struck deeper than Denise's calculated exclusion. At 25, Catherine was old enough to make her own judgments, and she'd clearly decided I wasn't worth basic courtesy. "I should go," I said, turning away before tears could form. "Good call," Catherine replied. "By the way, cute dress. TJ Maxx?" The designer dress I'd splurged on, reduced to a discount store purchase with a single dismissive comment. As I walked out, I noticed Pierre Lumiere himself greeting guests at another table, the celebrated chef whose partnership meeting I'd be attending tomorrow. The irony wasn't lost on me. Excluded from a family dinner at the very restaurant where I'd soon be discussing business. Outside in the cool Chicago evening, I leaned against a wall, finally allowing tears to fall. My phone buzzed with a text from Jade. "How's the family dinner going?" I couldn't bring myself to respond. For 20 years, I'd endured Denise's systematic campaign to exclude me, always believing that success and patience would eventually earn me a place in my own family. Tonight had shattered that illusion completely. Dad's avoidant glance replayed in my mind. After all these years, he still chose peace with Denise over a relationship with his daughter. Catherine's casual cruelty suggested that even the next generation was committed to my exclusion. Walking to my car, I passed the restaurant's elegant sign, Lumiere, where moments become memories. The marketing slogan felt like a final twist of the knife. This would certainly become a memory, just not the kind their branding promised. I drove home in a daze, questioning every family interaction I'd ever had. Had Dad ever truly stood up for me when I wasn't present? Was there ever a time Denise hadn't controlled the narrative about who I was and what place I deserved in the family? As I entered my empty apartment, the weight of tonight's rejection settled fully on my shoulders. Something had fundamentally changed. I could no longer pretend we were a family with occasional difficulties. The truth was starker and more painful. To them, I simply didn't matter. The next morning, I arrived at our agency's downtown office earlier than usual, throwing myself into work to distract from the previous night's humiliation. Jade found me reviewing presentation slides for our meeting with Pierre Lumiere. "You never texted back last night," she said, placing a coffee on my desk. "That bad, huh?" I summarized the disaster at Lumiere, trying to maintain a detached tone despite the lingering hurt. "Your family is officially terrible," Jade declared when I finished. "Especially Denise. Who does that to someone?" "Someone who spent 20 years perfecting the art," I replied, attempting a smile that didn't quite work. "But I'm done letting it affect me. Today's meeting is too important." Jade studied me with concern. "Are you sure you're okay?" "I will be," I promised, more to myself than to her. "Let's focus on convincing Pierre to approve our expansion proposal." Our meeting with Pierre was scheduled at his test kitchen across town. As marketing partners for Lumiere Enterprises, we'd helped elevate his brand over the past year, generating significant buzz for his restaurants. Our proposal would extend beyond marketing to become equity partners in his expansion plans. 2 hours later, we sat across from Pierre, who greeted us warmly. "The dynamic duo. Your social campaign for our anniversary event was magnifique. Reservations are booked solid for months." The meeting progressed smoothly until Pierre mentioned the previous night's event. "I noticed you left rather quickly," he said, glancing at me. "Was everything not to your satisfaction?" My heart sank. "You saw me?" "But of course, I make a point to observe everything in my restaurants." His expression turned sympathetic. "The woman at the door, she was unkind to you, non?" I hesitated, calculating how much to reveal. "There was a misunderstanding about the guest list. It's not important." "Family complications," Jade interjected smoothly. "You know how it is." Pierre's eyebrows rose. "That woman is your family? Mon Dieu, she seemed, how do you say, unpleasant." "My stepmother," I admitted, uncomfortable with this collision of personal and professional worlds. "It's a long story." "Well," Pierre said, returning to business, "I have considered your proposal carefully. I am impressed with your vision for expanding our brand." Relief washed over me. The meeting was back on track. "However," he continued, "I have received another proposal I must consider. From Wilson Financial Group." I froze. Wilson Financial was my father's investment firm, where Catherine had recently started working. This couldn't be a coincidence. "They approached me last week," Pierre explained. "Their representative spoke highly of your marketing work, but suggested a more substantial partnership would benefit all parties." "Their representative?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "A bright young woman, Catherine Wilson, I believe." The betrayal sliced through me. Catherine had deliberately undermined our proposal while pretending she didn't respect my career. She'd known about our meeting with Pierre all along. "I told her I was committed to meeting with you first," Pierre continued, oblivious to my distress. "But her offer includes significant capital investment that would accelerate our expansion timeline." Jade stepped in, asking Pierre detailed questions about Catherine's proposal while I struggled to process this new betrayal. Somehow my family had found a way to intrude on the one area of my life where I'd built something entirely my own. As we left Pierre's kitchen, Jade squeezed my arm. "This isn't over. We can counter their proposal." My phone lit up with a text from Dad. "Heard you met with Pierre Lumiere. Catherine mentioned your agency does his marketing. Small world. Proud of you, kiddo. The casual message, devoid of any acknowledgement of last night's exclusion or Catherine's deliberate interference with my business, was the final straw. The persistent hope that my father might eventually recognize Denise's cruelty, that he might finally choose me, evaporated completely. It's not about the proposal anymore, I told Jade, a new resolve hardening within me. It's about making sure they can never do this to me again. When we returned to our office, Jade and I dove into research, examining Catherine's proposal to Pierre through every contact we had in the industry. What we discovered was illuminating. Wilson Financial's offer wasn't coming from the main company, but from a new emerging markets division Catherine had recently been appointed to lead. This is her first major deal, Jade noted, scrolling through business profiles. She's using it to establish herself at your father's company. And undermining me in the process, I added. Classic Catherine. I was about to close my laptop when an email notification appeared from Pierre's executive assistant, requesting a follow-up meeting tomorrow. Apparently, Pierre had additional questions about our proposal. This could be good, Jade said cautiously. He's not rushing to accept Catherine's offer. Later that evening, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was James, Pierre's head sous chef, whom I'd met during our marketing campaign photo shoots. Mandy, I hope you don't mind me calling, he began nervously. I overheard something today you should know about. According to James, Catherine had returned to Lumiere that afternoon with Denise. They'd met with Pierre, pushing aggressively for an immediate decision on their proposal. When Pierre mentioned his scheduled follow-up with me, Denise had laughed. Mandy's little marketing company? They're barely staying afloat, she'd said dismissively. She's always exaggerated her success. It's a family trait. Her mother was the same way. My hands tightened around the phone. Denise rarely mentioned my mother, but when she did, it was always to diminish her memory. There's more, James continued. They brought financial documents supposedly showing your company is overextended. They warned Pierre he'd be risking his expansion by partnering with you. That's completely false, I said, shock giving way to anger. We're debt-free and profitable. I figured as much, James replied. Pierre seemed skeptical too. He's known you longer than them. After thanking James, I called Jade immediately. They're actively trying to sabotage us with false information. Can they even get access to our financials? Jade asked, alarmed. No, which means they're fabricating documents. The realization hit me like a physical blow. They're committing fraud to destroy my business. The next morning, we arrived early for our meeting with Pierre, prepared to defend against Catherine's allegations. To our surprise, he greeted us warmly, as if the previous day's conversation with my family had never happened. I've been thinking about your proposal, he said, leading us to his private office. The equity partnership approach is intriguing. As Pierre outlined his thoughts, my mind raced. Why wasn't he mentioning the financial concerns Catherine had raised? Was this a trap? When Pierre stepped out briefly to speak with his chef, I turned to Jade. Something's off. He's acting like yesterday never happened. Maybe he dismissed their claims? Jade suggested hopefully. Pierre returned before we could speculate further. I have a counter-proposal, he announced. Instead of the expansion plan you suggested, I'm considering selling Lumiere entirely. This was unexpected. Selling to whom? I asked. That's what I wanted to discuss, Pierre replied, sliding a folder across the table. I received this offer yesterday. I opened the folder to find a formal acquisition proposal from Wilson Financial Group, specifically Catherine's division. The document outlined plans to transform Lumiere into a chain of mid-range restaurants, completely abandoning Pierre's carefully cultivated brand identity. They claim you two were childhood friends, Pierre added, watching my reaction closely. That you'd be pleased to see her succeed with this project. The audacity was breathtaking. Catherine wasn't just trying to undermine my business. She was attempting to completely erase me from the narrative, positioning herself as the rightful architect of everything I'd built. Childhood friends? I echoed, struggling to maintain my composure. Pierre, Catherine is my half-sister. This proposal is her attempt to sabotage my business relationship with you. Pierre's eyebrows shot up. The woman from the dinner is your stepmother and Catherine is her daughter? This makes more sense now. I explained the true nature of our relationship, including Catherine's deliberate interference and the false financial information they had presented. I suspected something wasn't right, Pierre admitted. Their proposal seemed, how do you say, too convenient? The numbers didn't align with what I know of my business. Relief washed over me. He hadn't believed their lies. I have a different proposition, Pierre continued, one I've been considering for months. I want to retire within 5 years. My children have no interest in the restaurant business. I need partners who understand my vision and can preserve it while growing the brand. He paused, studying us. I'd like to offer you and Jade the opportunity to become majority owners of Lumiere Enterprises over time, starting with a 30% stake immediately. I nearly choked on my water. This was far beyond our original proposal. Why us? Jade asked, ever practical. You understand branding, customer experience, and my philosophy. More importantly, his eyes met mine, you have integrity, something your family members clearly lack. After Pierre outlined the financial details, Jade and I asked for time to discuss the offer privately. Once alone, we could barely contain our excitement. This is incredible, Jade whispered. We'd own Lumiere. It's a major commitment, I cautioned, though equally thrilled. We'd need to restructure our agency to handle both businesses. We were deep in planning when my phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. Heard you're meeting with Pierre again. Don't waste his time. Our deal is practically finalized. The audacity fueled my determination. Let's accept Pierre's offer, I decided. But with one condition. When Pierre returned, we presented our response. We would accept his offer, with the condition that our ownership remain confidential for 1 month while we arranged financing and restructured our company. Is this about your family? Pierre asked perceptively. Partially, I admitted. I'd prefer they not interfere during the transition. Pierre agreed, and by that afternoon, we had signed preliminary documents making us 30% owners of Lumiere Enterprises, with a path to majority ownership over 5 years. The following week passed in a blur of meetings with lawyers, accountants, and bank officers. Meanwhile, Catherine continued her campaign against me, unaware of our agreement with Pierre. She sent increasingly smug messages about her imminent deal and even had Dad call to suggest I focus on what I'm good at and leave restaurant investments to them. I maintained the facade, letting them believe their plan was working. Then a complication arose. Denise had organized another family celebration at Lumiere, this time for Catherine's successful business achievement. The invitation arrived via text from Dad, with a note that made my blood boil. Might be uncomfortable after last time, but your sister would appreciate your support. They're celebrating their deal before it's finalized? Jade asked incredulously when I showed her the text. Typical Denise, I replied, creating a public victory narrative before anything's confirmed. I was tempted to ignore the invitation, but a different idea took shape. Our confidentiality agreement with Pierre didn't technically prevent me from attending a dinner at the restaurant. It only prohibited announcing our ownership. I think I should go, I told Jade. One last family dinner. Are you sure? After how they treated you last time? I smiled, a plan crystallizing. Absolutely. But first, we need to make one small change to our agreement with Pierre. The day before Catherine's celebration, I requested an urgent meeting with Pierre and his lawyer. I explained the situation and asked for a minor modification to our confidentiality clause, one that would allow me a small but significant revelation if necessary. Pierre, understanding the personal significance, readily agreed. Sometimes, he said with a knowing smile, justice must be served with the perfect timing, non. The night of Catherine's celebration, I arrived at Lumiere wearing a simple but elegant black dress. The hostess, the same one from the previous disaster, recognized me immediately. "Ms. Wilson," she greeted me, her expression carefully neutral. "Your family is already seated." "Thank you," I replied, then added quietly, "I'll find my own way." I approached the private dining room where Denise had arranged the party. Inside, I could see my father, Catherine, Thomas, and about 15 others laughing over champagne. Denise stood at the head of the table, raising a toast. So proud of Catherine for securing this incredible opportunity. The Wilson name will now be associated with one of Chicago's finest establishments. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the room. Conversations faltered as heads turned in my direction. Catherine's smile froze, and Denise's champagne glass paused midair. "Mandy," my father said, surprise evident in his voice. "You came." "I wouldn't miss Catherine's celebration," I replied smoothly. Denise recovered quickly, her smile tightening. "I'm surprised you'd show your face after last time. The hostess knows to expect you tonight, but I've arranged for a separate small table. Wouldn't want you feeling awkward at the main celebration." Murmurs rippled through the room as guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. "That won't be necessary," I said, my voice carrying clearly. "Oh, honey," Denise continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I insist. This is Catherine's special night. Maybe try the fast food court instead if you're uncomfortable with the arrangement." A few nervous laughs followed her suggestion. Catherine smirked, raising her champagne glass slightly in my direction. Exactly as before. Except this time I was prepared. "Or maybe," I suggested calmly, "I should check with the owner." "The owner?" Denise scoffed. "Pierre doesn't involve himself in seating arrangements." I smiled. Actually, I wasn't referring to Pierre. Right on cue, the restaurant manager appeared at my side, accompanied by Pierre himself. "Ms. Wilson," the manager said respectfully, "your usual table is ready whenever you'd like it." "Thank you, Michael," I replied. "But first, I believe my family is confused about something." "What's happening?" Catherine demanded, looking between me and Pierre. "What did she mean about the owner?" Pierre stepped forward, addressing the table. "I am delighted to introduce you all to one of Lumiere's new owners. Ms. Mandy Wilson and her partner acquired 30% of my restaurant group last week, with an agreement to become majority shareholders over the next 5 years." The silence that followed was absolute. Denise's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. Catherine's face drained of color. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Our deal was never going to happen," I finished for her. "Pierre rejected your proposal the day after you submitted it. The financial documents you provided were obviously falsified." Dad stood up, confusion written across his face. "Mandy, what's going on? Catherine said—" "Catherine lied," I stated flatly. "Just like she lied about being my childhood friend. Just like Denise lied about me not being invited to Thomas's celebration." I turned to Pierre. "Would you mind giving my family and me a moment alone?" He nodded graciously and departed with the manager. I took his place at the head of the table, opposite Denise. "For 20 years, I've accepted being treated as an outsider in my own family," I said calmly. "I've endured your cruelty, Denise, and your indifference, Dad, always hoping things would eventually change. They won't, and I've finally accepted that." I looked directly at Catherine. "Your deal with Pierre was never going to happen, but mine did. Lumiere is now partially mine, and your celebration tonight is being held in my restaurant." The implications weren't lost on anyone present. Denise's carefully orchestrated humiliation had backfired spectacularly. "Your dinner tonight is on the house," I concluded, standing to leave. "Consider it the last thing you'll ever receive from me." As I walked out, Dad called after me, but I didn't look back. That chapter of my life was closed. In its place was something far more valuable than family acceptance, the knowledge that I had built something meaningful entirely on my own terms. Outside, Jade waited in her car. How did it go? She asked as I slid into the passenger seat. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Exactly as planned. Now let's go celebrate our new business venture. As we drove away from Lumiere, our restaurant, I didn't look back once.